Did I say last? All right. Okay. 1 second. I'm gonna blow my nose real fast. Then I'll be right back. We'll get started. Sorry. Okay. Welcome. Good morning. Happy Saturday. Goes back. My name is Tim. I go by Foamy Guy on GitHub and Discord. First of all, welcome. Thanks for watching this. If you are here, we typically stream, and by we I mean me. I typically stream at this time each week around 10 a.m. Central Time, working on some CircuitPython stuff. And I am back this morning, although we are venturing into the CPython world. We're not working on CircuitPython directly today, but regular Python or CPython. Coffee cheers to anyone who's got a coffee this morning. Let me see one thing real quick. Okay. So yes, CircuitPython, if you do want to learn more about that, which is typically what I work on, you can at circuitpython.org. It basically is a version of Python that can run on tiny computers called microcontrollers. You can program it just by editing a Python code file, and you can interact with all sorts of other electronics. A Raspberry Pi is similar in some ways to microcontrollers because it is, a quote-unquote little computer on a board. But the Raspberry Pi is many, many times more powerful than most of the microcontrollers that CircuitPython works with. There is a thing called Blinka, which is a compatibility layer that allows you to use CircuitPython libraries on Raspberry Pi computers. So there is a link there between CircuitPython and Raspberry Pis. But today, well, at least as of right now, I should say, the specific stuff I'm going to work on today during this stream, we will not be utilizing the Blinka stuff at all. However, the project that I am working on ultimately will, because we are going to have a display that is connected to the Raspberry Pi. So yeah, if you are new and you want to learn more, circuitpython.org, join us on the Discord, come say hi. There are lots of learn guides and all kinds of stuff to get started if you are interested in using CircuitPython for your projects or just to have fun with, to learn some stuff. What's this? So we are, yeah, like I said, I'm on a Raspberry Pi. So I have it currently set up on an HDMI output, but ultimately this is going to go to a TFT screen. Although I might make a different version that's for the big screen. It might be nice to have one formatted for the big screen. But as you may have seen in the titles, did I set the titles? Right? Yeah, okay. As you may have seen in the titles, we are working on a Bluesky scroller. So this will just fetch some posts from Bluesky and scroll them down the screen there. And it does just scroll infinitely. I did not open up, let's see, the IDE today. So let's get this open. In fact, this is not going to, well, it is, yeah, it is going to work because of the way I did it. That's right. Okay, so we can open this. We'll need to do some other things here in a minute to get linked up. I'll run you through the code that we have so far, and then we'll jump into the first task, which I have, which is kind of less about the code and more about going back to a freshly imaged Pi and figuring out what all is necessary to get this to run on it. I kind of did a bunch of stuff to install a bunch of things, and not all of it turned out working, so I need to figure out like the specific things that need to be done in order to run it, which will be one of the things I work on today. But I will walk you through the code first. It uses a thing called Pi WebView, which is a library that lets you use HTML, CSS, and JavaScript as kind of a front end, a GUI for Python code. So your Python code can like tell it what page to render, and it can interact between the JavaScript and Python very easily. So you can do things like whenever you click a button on the HTML page, this can, you know, call a Python function or something like that. So that's kind of the idea of Pi WebView. I chose to use it because it made a convenient GUI layer. Specifically, WebView already supports emojis, already supports images, already supports scrolling. Does a lot of stuff I already want it to do, so it seemed like a natural fit for this. We are kind of barely scratching the surface of what this Pi WebView thing can do, but it is what I used for this. And to that end, we'll look in the Python code first, and then I'll show you the HTML and the JavaScript. There's really not a lot going on inside of this thing, so we can walk through it relatively quick here. So AT feed URI. So AT is they call part of the Bluesky API, I guess, the Bluesky protocol or whatever. They have this whole kind of protocol thing they created. Anyway, they use AT as like a name for a bunch of stuff. So AT feed URI means we want to end up with something that looks like this, which is like AT:/ blah, 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 all this stuff here. And this is basically a link to a feed inside Bluesky, but it's in their own like format for their protocol or whatever, right? So this function is just taken a HTTP link that you can get from a share button on the page, and it's turning it into this thing that we need. Howdy, Johnny. Nice to see you, my friend. So that's just super easy. Convert one to the other, no problem. Fetch data is where all the interaction with the actual Bluesky API happens. It can take either a feed share link or a search args. Howdy to Paul Cutler. Nice to see you as well, my friend, this morning. So it can take either a search argument, and by search argument is actually a bit of a misnomer. It can actually take a dictionary of multiple search arguments, because you can pass like sort and some other stuff to it. So you can do multiple things, but most importantly, you know, the word you want to search for, the hashtag or whatever. Or you can do a feed share link, which is what you get out of this function, which is basically something that looks like this. This is a link you can get from the actual Bluesky page. I should probably open that up, shouldn't I? Let's open that up here. Let's do... What? I don't know. I'm pretty new to Bluesky, I will say. Bluesky, is it not? I don't think it's just bluesky.com, is it? bsky.app. All right, nice. Cats. Pretty happy with cats. So feeds, if we go to feeds, we can find a feed. Right now, the one I have it set up on is retro computing. Have this feed, and there's a share right here, share feed. This will copy the link that we need for this here. So this one should match because that's the feed that I'm using. So that's where I got the link from. You can do that for any feed. There's a thing called lists. I haven't gotten into lists yet. Lists are slightly different than feeds, but I presume it will be very easy to make it do effectively the same thing for lists too. So you pass in one or the other. If you don't pass in either, then you get the retro computing by default for right now. I'll probably change this eventually to an Adafruit search. So this will end up in a guide. Part of what I'm going to do today is kind of iron out the details that I'll need for the guide, like the how to get it running and such. So retro computing by default. If we so basically it's a little bit awkward because it's either or, right? It might be nice to split this up a bit better, but right now it's kind of an either or type function. You either give it the feed link or the search arguments, and so we have logic here that's like, if it was the feed link, then we are gonna get the AT URI from it using that converter function. It's printing right now, and then it actually goes and it stuffs that AT URI into another URL right here, which goes to the Bluesky API. I will say props to Bluesky for right now. Their API seems to have a very permissive attitude. Like I haven't had to, like I did create a Bluesky account, but there's no tokens or anything here, right? So we're making unauthenticated API requests. We're getting data back. It's formatted nicely. As far as I understand it, the rate limit is fairly high. So I'll say, props to Bluesky for making their thing relatively developer friendly. I do know it's like new, right? Who knows how long that stuff will last, but right now it's actually pretty cool. You can just pull data out of it pretty easily. You can also hook up the listener fire hose and get massive amounts of data out of it about everything. Again, without authenticating, you can set all that stuff up, which is actually pretty cool. So that's the actual API we're going to call. I am passing headers. I thought I saw to do this somewhere. I did notice at one point I'm getting back responses that include posts in other languages as well. So it's not actually doing what I thought it might, which is filter the post by language, but there might be a different way to do that. Or I might have just seen that on a different documentation page that wasn't related to what I actually ended up doing, which I think is possible as well. Super easy. We just make the request. We get back a response. If it was a search arguments instead, we have a slightly different API endpoint. We don't have the feed at thing anymore, right? Because instead we are just going to tack on the search arguments, which will basically mean when it goes and makes the request, it's going to add kind of like a question mark, and it's going to add any arguments that you have here. So you're going to probably have something like a queue. And so it's going to take that and make it a queue equals Adafruit. And then you could also have, I don't know what all the other options are off the top of my head. Let's see, and consult the API, Bluesky API, search, posts. All of these things you can do, sort, until, so there's like timing stuff, or if you want to get it between a certain range or how long ago or whatever. You can filter by author, language. Okay, so there is a lang right here, I guess, for search. Limit, pretty much everything takes a limit, which is how many maximum objects it's going to give back to you. Okay, we'll get rid of this. That was just for an example. So it takes, so requests will just do that for you. We have the URL, we pass it in, and then as long as we have params equals our dictionary, it will go and add all of those arguments to us. We have to make sure to give it ones that are valid or whatever, but it will just format them in. We don't have to manually do the question mark and all that, which is pretty sweet. We get back a response. I'm caching it right now. It turns out I'm not really using the cache for anything, but it's kind of nice to see what all the data is that's in there. I'm just writing it to a raw data file. Write that out, and then I will immediately load the entire response as JSON because the whole API returns JSON. I create a thing called process posts, which is going to contain just the bits of information that we care about, or just the bits of information that we want to show on the screen, essentially. It's a dictionary. It has a posts, which is just going to be a list. Probably we could go back and make this a list. I think I made it a dictionary to match the data that came out of the API, which comes back to you like this, but it could maybe be a list. I don't know. I'll leave it for now, but could probably be switched potentially. Fetched posts. So that's going to turn into that is okay. So that's going to be the actual list of posts that we loop through. This is going to have come back from our API. The thing is, if we did a feed, then we need to fetch it as the feed object inside the JSON. But if we did a search, then we need to fetch it as the posts object. So it's kind of the same thing. It's just the list of actual objects that represent, all the posts that we got back from Bluesky. So we then loop it. We're going to go through there. We're going to make a current post dictionary. We are in one of the API responses, there's an extra post in the mix. Like you get a list of objects and the objects have a post and the post is an object with all of the actual data you care about. But in the other one, you just get a list of objects and the objects are all the data you care about. So in one, there's an extra post in the mix, and the other there's not. This is kind of equalizing it. So it's saying if you have a post key, then just get all the data from it and set it into here, so we don't have to worry about the difference. We grab the author, we grab the text. Those are just coming out of the data we got back. This is all handling the images, and there's a couple of different ways the images can work. They all are inside of the embed object in the data. We'll look at the data at some point in a little while here. You can see kind of what's going on in there. But I do want to keep cruising for now. So all the image stuff is inside embed. This is like a unique ID for each post. I'm using it to store the image file under the unique ID name. That way there will not be collisions. That way I can also easily match up which image goes with which post, because the unique ID is there and we already have the unique ID. So it can just easily open its own image. So we're getting that. There's a couple of different places where the image link can actually exist depending on different types of posts. Like they could be an image post, or they could be like a web link post and they could have a thumbnail, or they could be, well, actually external would be the web link post with the thumbnail. This thumbnail I think was for videos or like GIFs or something. So if a video is posted, then there will be a thumbnail that's kind of like a screenshot from the video essentially. So this is just getting a link to an image. The actual link can be in a couple of different spots of the data, but all of this boils down to get a link for an image out of the data from Bluesky. If we did find an image, because not every post will have an image, right? Some posts are text only. If we did actually find an image, then we go in here. We check and see if we have already downloaded the image or not. If we have not already downloaded the image, then we are going to download it. Makes sense. To do that, we just make a GET request to the image URL, open up a file, write all the bytes to it. And then if we do have an image, the other thing is we go ahead and set the image file to the name of the file there, so we can just refer to it later. And then all the way down here, whether or not we had an image, we will always do this last line here, which is just adding it to our list that we created back up here. So we loop through everything. We create distilled objects that contain just the things we want to show, which in this case right now is author, text of the post, and the image. All those things go into our object, and then we store it inside process posts. And then I'm actually writing that into a JSON as well. That is everything that happens to fetch data. Read cached data, super simple. Read the file we just wrote right there and return all the objects from inside of it. Okay, that's pretty much all we need for helpers. Everything else is just setting up the actual web view and the API that goes between. So the API that allows interaction between JavaScript and Python, super easy to set up. Again, this is part of PyWebView's appeal. This is one of the features they support. So we just can create a class API. There is a log one. The log one was not actually working for me, but it doesn't matter. I left it in and I was able to figure out a different way to basically do what we need anyway. But get posts, this is the one that's actually important to the project. When JavaScript is going to be able to call these functions, and when JavaScript calls this function, it will execute all the code that's in here, and it can even get the returned result from this code. So what this code will do is fetch data, and currently it's fetching the retro computer, but you can see the line above, I have it doing the Adafruit search. So it's got Q is Adafruit, it does sort latest. It looks like that's the only arguments, but you could tack on more in that dictionary if you want. And eventually I'll probably try to make it to where the JavaScript maybe can pass through an argument for what it wants to fetch. But for right now, it's just kind of hard-coded and you switch it right here. It fetches data. It returns the data from the cache. So it will fetch the data, it will process it, it will write it to that cached file, and then it will give the contents of that cached file to the JavaScript to be able to actually go and display. That's it for the API. The only other two things it needs to do in order to get this running is create a window. I just have a test title in it. As you can see, it needs an HTML file that it's going to show. You give it the API like this. You give it a width and a height like this. I've chosen the size based on the TFT that I'm ultimately going to use. And then you just start it up. And you can start it up with debug true or debug false, which is default. If you do debug true, then you can use a Chromium-based browser to get developer tools for this web instance that's running inside this thing. So you can ultimately like inspect it and see the console and do all the stuff that developer tools give you, which is pretty useful if you are trying to troubleshoot your software, which is where I ended up. This log function was not working for me. But debug true means that I can just go to the console and see the log anyway, so I don't need a separate log function. Okay, index HTML, going to be not a lot going inside of here. It's a very basic page. It's got a little bit of CSS to be able to hide things. It's got an image thing that's going to set the size of the image to be essentially always smaller than the width of the screen and always smaller than the height of the screen. The width has a little bit of padding on it, so it's you notice it's not actually 320, it's a bit lower so that there's some padding. Turn off the scroll bars because the scroll bars take up some of the screen and we don't really need to see it, so those just get hidden. We have a div that is called post wall. We have a div that is called post template, which has the hidden class, so it won't be shown inside of there. It has an H3 for the author, has a paragraph for the text, and it has an image for the post image. And we load script.js, and that is the only thing going on inside of here. Script.js is pretty messy. There's going to be a lot of commented stuff, but I will stroll through the bits that ended up mattering, which are we grab a reference to the post template. We grab a reference to the post wall, which holds all of our posts. Keep looping, did not end up using this. We could delete it, but I'm not going to right now. Cur fetch index. This is basically a counter for how many times we've fetched data from Bluesky. It's used so that we can filter out posts that are older. New posts, that's going to ultimately, I think, hold the posts that we received from the API. In our case, from the JavaScript's perspective, the posts that we received from that Python call into the API, like our local API, which of course hit the Bluesky API. Initialize wall, this is a Boolean that just is like a flag for the beginning of the program. The first time it runs, it needs to initialize the wall. Every time thereafter this thing runs, it will update the wall instead of initialize it. This gets a callback whenever PyWebView is ready to interact, which in our case is important because we want to make those API calls like the get posts call that we saw defined inside the Python code right here. So this basically tells us when we're able to make those calls. I printed this out so I knew that it would happen. I have a function in here, an inner function that's called fetch new posts, which calls the PyWebView API get posts. These things work as promises, so it calls then, which then gets a function which gets passed the posts in. So the posts actually come into here, and once we get the posts, we say, if we have not initialized the wall yet, then build the post wall out of the posts. set a timeout for 2000 milliseconds rather away. So in 2 seconds, execute the code that's in here. The code that's in here says every 50 milliseconds, call this function called auto scroll. So wait 2 seconds and then start calling auto scroll every 50 milliseconds. Set the Boolean to true. That way, the next time that fetch new posts gets called, initialized wall will now be true, which means that part of the condition is false. We go to the else. We say new posts equals posts. Again, what we got passed from the API. And we update the cur fetch index. So every time we do fetch posts, we're going to add 1 to this so that we keep a running kind of tally of how many times we fetched. So we have declared this function so far. We're going to call that function. So it's going to do its thing. And then we are also going to say set interval every 7 minutes, call that function again. So every 7 minutes, it will call this function. After the first time, of course, initialize wall will be true. So it will basically just be updating new posts at that point. Every time we fetch, new posts will come in. We'll put them inside of new posts, and the rest of the code will deal with them from there. Inflate the post template. This takes a post object. So the object we get from the, essentially it originates in the Bluesky API, but we then process it down into the process data and we return it here. When we return it, it's pretty much a list of objects, and this is taking a single one of those objects, and it is inflating, the verb I like to use, it is inflating one of these post templates, and it's putting all the data from the object into these different fields. It's removing the hidden class, and it's also removing the ID, since you're only supposed to have one. IDs are supposed to be unique, right? You don't want a bunch of things with the same ID on the page. So it's removing the ID, removing the hidden, it's filling in all the other stuff. If there is no image, then it will also remove the image element. It won't just leave an empty image element there. But that is what all of this does. And it will return the post object that has been inflated, the element. So it will return essentially this div ready to be appended into the DOM. Build post wall accepts the posts, loops over all the posts in the list, inflates a post element. It calls that inflate like we just looked at. It gets a div from the current post while we're looping. It appends the div into the post wall. So that's going to build up all of the posts as divs into the post wall. Nice and easy. This we did not end up using. Add event listener scroll. So whenever the window scrolls, whenever the page scrolls, we're going to execute the code that's inside of here. And remember, back up here, we set this thing called auto scroll to get called every 50 milliseconds. We haven't run across that function yet. It's down at the bottom, but based on the name, we can safely assume that's going to be scrolling the page for us. So we're also going to be, when we do that scroll, we're also going to be getting a callback here. And when we get that callback, we're going to say, have we currently scrolled past 1,000 pixels? This is pretty much arbitrary, but it will become apparent what's for in a minute. So we're saying, have we scrolled past 1,000 pixels? If we have not, then we have nothing to do, okay? So we're only interested in when we cross that threshold of scrolling past the 1,000 pixel mark. When that happens, we're going to grab the first element from the post wall. So the one that's all the way at the top, which remember, we're scrolled down to 1,000. So it's way up above the screen. We cannot see it anymore. It's way up there. We have scrolled past it. We're going to grab that first element. We're going to remove it from the post wall. So we're going to take it out of the post wall. If we have any new posts, then if we do not have any new posts, then we're just going to take that first post that we grabbed from the top and we're going to add it to the bottom. So we basically take one from the top, add it to the bottom. And that's if we do not have any new posts. If we do have new posts, then we still take the first one out of the top, but we inflate the new one and we add the new one to the bottom. So this is how we get new posts into the feed. They get added at the bottom as we're scrolling down the page. And then the cur fetch index, where that gets used is it will go and say, hey, remember that first one that we removed from the top? Is that part of the current like fetch, or is that part of the previous fetch? If it's part of the current fetch, then go ahead and also add that back into the wall, okay? It goes down at the bottom still, but we go ahead and add it back in if it's part of the current fetch. If it's part of the previous fetch, though, then it will have gotten removed up here, and we will just never add it back in because it's part of the previous fetch. So they kind of get slowly filtered out of the streaming wall here. Howdy, C. Grover. Nice to see you this morning. There's some logging to print out some stuff, and that's it. And then here we find auto scroll, which, as the name suggests, super basic, super easy, just window.scroll by 2. So it's going to scroll down by 2 pixels. We set it up for every 50 milliseconds, but obviously you could tweak those values as you wanted. So in our case, that means every 50 milliseconds, it will scroll by 2 pixels. And then we will do this check. And if we have scrolled past that 1000 pixel threshold, then we grab from the top and add to the bottom, either new posts if we have them or old posts if we do not. And what this all adds together to mean is that we get this kind of infinite scrolling effect. So we just scroll down and down and down and down and down, and we'll never really hit the bottom, because every time we pass that, halfway point, that 1000 pixels, it's probably not actually exactly halfway, but whatever. Every time we pass that point, it's kind of like refreshing itself, right? Grabbing from the top, moving to the bottom, grabbing from the top, moving to the bottom. And so there will always be more things down at the bottom to keep scrolling past. And that's pretty much it, which I think is pretty straightforward. The Py web view being the glue between the Python code and the JavaScript code, I think makes this super easy. The code's kind of messy still, so it does need to be cleaned up, but yeah, I feel like that's pretty good. If anyone has questions, comments, ideas, anything about the current code, feel free to drop them. So the next thing I want to do, though, now that I've given you guys kind of a quick look at what it is, how it works, I need to, like I said before, I need to check what all is required to actually run it. Because I did a bunch of setup stuff, and I don't think all of it was actually required. Well, I know all of it wasn't actually required because not all of it worked. So we're going to close that. I am going to shut this down because I want to put a new SD card in it. I have a new SD card already flashed. Shut down is not anything. Shut down? H now, is that a thing, I think? I got the whole GUI here. I guess I could just shut down for real. Maybe that was a bit of a... You can see all of the crud on the screen that way now. Real nice. Cat hairs and everything. Okay, no, yeah, we're shutting down. Got this thing going. Power off service. We'll give that a minute. Right. I can see it's still blinking over there, so I'm going to give it another minute. Okay, I think it's off. This will be a little bit tough here. I kind of we're a little precarious on the screen situation. No way I'm going to be able to get this in the camera shot without suddenly avalanching my desk. So. Just a quick. All right, this will probably take a minute to boot up because this is a fresh SD card, and it's gonna have to probably do, I don't know, its own apt updates and all kinds of stuff. So for a minute here. We are going to be kind of waiting on this. Anything I want to do, mess with in the code? I think so. Sure. It's everything that's in here could theoretically just run in the computer here. So we were in Bluesky rpy-env. See, that's part of the stuff I don't know for sure if I ended up needing. Stuff install. Oh. So one of the other pretty cool things about Pi WebView is it's cross-platform. So it can run, obviously, on the Raspberry Pi and Linux is where I'm using it. Host-named service. Okay, I'm going to try to keep an eye on this. You can't see the full screen here because of how the camera is set up. But I will say sometimes I've had this just get frozen during, like, when it's on this screen and, like, can't see it, but, like, down here there's little stuff written. Sometimes I've had it where it just gets frozen there and the stuff that's written down there is not changing. So I'm going to try to keep an eye on that. And if it gets locked for too long, I will throw the impatient flag and reboot it. But and this thing, Pi WebView, it can run on Windows. It can supposedly run on Mac. I have not tested Mac. I have access to a Mac, but I have tested Linux. I've tested Raspberry Pi. I have tested Windows. There are quirks about the different ones I have found, but I have ultimately gotten it working on all three. Pretty nice. That's running through and doing some stuff. Okay, so on the Raspberry Pi, the emojis didn't work at first. I had to install this to get the emojis to work. So that's going to be something we want to do for sure. And then I'm thinking maybe, so my thought is on this new Pi that we are loading up right now, I think these two things might be the only thing we need to do. We might not even need like a virtual environment, I don't think. Maybe one more actually would be Python 3 requests, which I think is also packaged for apt. Because we do need requests to call the Bluesky API for sure. Okay, but theoretically, this should be able to run like on my computer also. Except instead we got an we got an inspector and this. Interesting. Okay, so interesting. So this doesn't. So when I run it on my computer, it doesn't like wait for me to go to the browser and load the inspector. It's just like, here it is. Interesting. Yeah, on the Raspberry Pi, you have to like open the Chromium browser, navigate to the page, localhost 8228, and then once you're on that page, then you'll find a link to the inspector for your instance, and then you can click that and it takes you to the inspector for your instance. This just kind of just popped it up there. So it's not working, so let's see if we can. So I will say it is kind of chatty about like it outputs some errors that sound bad but don't end up mattering. Like this. Maybe I'm not sure if that's. Not sure if that's important or not. So I like to turn that off because we don't need to be able to see copy of the output. We have the output right there. Oh. So basically this is because it's not getting it's only getting the index. It's not getting the other things. includes the JavaScript, which is literally what makes it do anything useful. Which is, I guess, because of the way this is linked. But that works on the Raspberry Pi, just not here, I guess. I mean, it might start in static, but the images are going to be broken also. Maybe data should move inside of static, or maybe just images should move inside of static. We just do JS script, will it work? Kill himself? Annoying, this spawns in front every time. No, it got a 404 still. Like, it's running a server. So all we did was give it URL. Anything else? That just works on the Raspberry Pi. This is on hostname. On the first time I looked, but it definitely changed a lot in between. So you can also use your own server, which I guess we could do, but necessarily want to. Give it like a static? Oh, I wish I could see the previous run. Were these the exact same? Did it say /JS script exact same way, or? Might as well probably turn debug off. Have a reason. Yeah, so that's the exact same. That's the exact same. So I mean, it's just it's not serving the static files except for index. On Raspberry Pi, it does. Could very well be different versions. Again, I ended up installing it differently on the Pi, so it's like static. Search doesn't do anything. Static. So it just says assets, index, to SSL, an API. Doesn't actually do anything, it just prints stuff. Oh, it doesn't do anything on this side. It does still say hostname service, so I'm close to thinking I might reboot it. I don't know if it's like I know sometimes they lock up when there's a power problem. It's not getting enough power. I mean, it's on a wall adapter. Or if there's just something about the setup. Hostname service, so I assume it's during network. Maybe there's something weird on my network. So this called to assets index, and then surely that just makes reference to. They just do. So they have no further files. So I wonder if it's like only looking inside of HTML since I gave it index. Since I gave it HTML index. Maybe we should just have index inside of static. And realistically, we could just have script inside. Not gonna be any more files, so I don't know why I made sub. Okay, so if that was just right next to index, could we just give it script and does this launch any faster if I close them? I'm gonna turn debug off. I think debug takes an extra second. Yeah, a lot faster. I did not update the index. There we go. Okay. So you can see it grabbed the, well, I mean, there's a print in there for the AT. It grabbed the feed data, which is there, which is going to be very long. It downloaded all the images it needs, and then it's running this. The images are not working, and that's kind of the same problem that we just resolved, honestly. And I think I'm going to just maybe try to... I mean, I'd really rather not just dump the images into static. I'd really love to use the sub folder. Maybe the subfolders are going to work now, though, because before I was pointed at HTML, and now I'm pointed more at static. I wonder if we skipped index here, if it would just do that for us. Okay, let me try moving this into static. And let's change the code that downloads also. Yeah, this is still on hostname service. I think I am gonna... This, it's not like... Hasn't done anything in a minute. And I swear that I have seen this before. I think even on the same service, and I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing that I eventually got impatient and rebooted it, and then it's no longer a problem, so I think it just worked after that. Fingers crossed. Hope for the best. I don't know what about the host name would take long. I guess we'll start searching if it's stuck there again, but it's doing its thing. It's putting all its stuff in the corner there. You can see them when they're super long, but the angle of the camera is off most of it there. Okay. That's that screen. Yep, we got a mouse. Yeah, see, I don't know what that is. I think that's just a thing. It's either my environment or something about the image I chose or something about my Raspberry. I don't know. But it does that. I've noticed that. I think that might be the wait for the network on boot. Oh. Wait for network on boot. Can you just hit enter or something? Maybe the maybe reboot was a bit of a sludge. 128. Okay, so it did get the same IP actually. I was wondering if it was going to get the same IP. So I'm going to connect over SSH because I find it a little bit more convenient. Ultimately, when we run this, okay. Question for everybody watching, in case anybody's got some Linux foo that I'm not aware of. Okay, so I'm gonna SSH to this, right? SSH. Yeah, that's fine. We've got the same IP, but SSH knows it's different, which I guess that's security features of SSH, isn't it? So. Okay, we're connected to this through SSH. So what I was about to say was when we want to run the GUI program, when we want to run the Bluesky thing, the PyWebView thing, I cannot run it through SSH. I mean, I can run it through SSH, but it doesn't work. I need to run it through this terminal that is in the HDMI like GUI thing, right? Is there some way from an SSH instance where I can launch a command, whatever it is, right? Python, in my case, it's Python some file. But is there a way where I can launch some command from SSH and make it run inside of the GUI one instead? If that's possible, that would super duper help me out. It's set the display environment variable. I will need to read into that one. Just turn the option off. It will do networking, but not stall if issues. Network resolves usually later. Turn off that option. So that you said is network on boot. I'll try to remember. To turn that one off. That's in. Is it in? When you say Raspi config, do you mean Raspi config like after you get it imaged and you run like sudo raspi config? This, or do you mean from the from this thing? Is that possible to do from here? Because this is like the SD card that I put in, I imaged with this, and that was the only thing I had done to it. So that we just saw right there was the very first boot up. I wouldn't be able to run raspi config until we got into it the first time. I'll try enter. I feel kind of dumb for it, but I honestly never thought to just press enter. It's possible it will just go on if I do that. If it is actually just waiting, right? Set the display environment variable. Okay, I'm going to look into that. Once we get running here, I'm going to try running it that way. Was there some yeah, XF, yeah. Display inf, it looks familiar. Frame buffer. I think I do think the X sharing thing, I feel like I've at least heard about before as well, like X forwarding or something like that. I think that might let you get like remote GUI instance, which would also be kind of cool. But in my case, I want to like launch from SSH into this other like logged in instance kind of thing. But the display thing, that might help us. I will definitely look into that. So what do we have for Python? We do have Python 3.11. So environments actually aren't, we don't get strict on environments, I think, until 3.12. You don't need to care as much about that. I probably should just go ahead and do this, right? It's probably going to take a minute. Probably going to take a minute. So we can let this run and I'll get back to refactoring. It was like display :1 because :0 was the terminal or something like that. Okay. Look into that here in a minute once we get. Get to play the game of how up to date is the image. Actually, pretty darn up to date. X panel, X plug. I don't know what that is. LX plug. I don't know what that is. Bluetooth ejector menu netman. Like audio plug and play stuff or something. Okay, Linux in var play. So what is it currently? So what is it if we run it? Let's see what it is if we run it on the real one. I'll call this one the real one because it's like local or whatever. But 0. And here is ominously empty. Okay. So if we wait a little bit before we go crazy here. Not actually about it. Variable, the display variable. Data shell scripting, I don't understand display. The display will print 0, 0, both. Okay, we have one monitor, so we got 0. Fair enough. Will be null. SSH, like anytime you don't have a, anytime you're not in a GUI, I guess, right? Green. Server. Okay. I'm gonna try just setting it to 0 and running something and see what happens. Let's export. So it was :0, is that? 0. Do you need to escape that or anything? Python here. See if it launches. So it's not I didn't make it like launch a window or anything though, so it might not do anything until we can have that. And I'll try 1 as well at some point too. Okay, so we can start figuring out what we need to install. So I think that we want to do the apt installs if we can. And they're already in the script, so I think I'm going to just use that. Is there sudo apt search python 3 requests? I think that's a thing. Yeah. Okay, let's add that one. So the code is halfway broken right now. Let's try to fix the rest of the code. So I basically moved images from data. So when we download the images, we do not want to put them into data anymore. Instead, we want to put them into static. And we also want to put them into static images in addition to checking for them in static images. Okay. So if we run that, does it work? Not download all the pictures again? Yes. And no, not work. We're actually showing. They're broken still. But the inflate method probably has to change, right? Okay, so that would be, I don't think we want to do it that way anymore. I think it would probably just be images. And relative static we're already inside of. I think, from this perspective. So I think just images, image file. There's that 2-second delay. I put the 2-second delay in because originally it started scrolling immediately. If you were actually watching it, you couldn't really read the first one. Oh, the images are working. Nice. Okay. Cool. Hopefully this will work on the Raspberry Pi now that I've refactored it. You might want to print set the environment variable in the Python script itself. Not sure it's oh, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a very good point. Okay, that's working. So we have at least refactored it in a way that makes it work on, I almost said Windows, but I mean on Linux and PC Linux, right? I can kind of consider this different than the Raspberry Pi because it's like got more stuff or whatever. Yeah, let's do print that while we're here, just so we know when we get to that point. Print ish play. Stuck. Okay. Yeah, now we want to get this onto the Pi. The way that I like to do that is I have a script called mount Pi. Well, this one's called mount Blinka Pi for this IP at least. It uses a thing called SSHFS, which is a way to get a file system connected over SSH. I think this is a Linux thing. I could just copy it to a thumb drive and move it over. I could put it in a Git repo and then I could clone it. There's a million ways I could get it to there. This one is just kind of convenient. What it does is when we run this, we put in the password for SSH, or it works with keys as well, right? So if I was using keys, we can still use this, which is pretty sweet. And then what that does is I now have a folder called PyMount, and inside that folder, it's the Raspberry Pi. So if I go back to SSH here, and I ls, we can see the files that are there. And if I go touch, you know, like, I don't know, blinka.txt or something, to put a file there. So now that exists, blinka.txt. And this one is on my host computer, or it's even, I guess, makes more sense if we just do it this way, right? I can go to PyMount right here, and boom, blinka.txt is right there. I can open it up. I can modify it here on my local PC. I can save it, and then it will get saved back to the Raspberry Pi. So it's like, kind of like the Pi is mounted as a thumb drive onto my local PC in that directory. So there's the blinka.txt that we created. So now I can just copy paste my code, which in my case I stored on my local computer inside Dropbox here. I'm actually going to go up one, and I'm going to go cp-r Bluesky, and then we're going to go into PyMount. Copy that. Go. We go back to SSH. If I ls right now, we then get Bluesky right there. Go inside there. So now I have a copy on the Pi, and I have a copy on my local computer. In my case, it's in Dropbox, so it's also backing up all over the place. Good alternative to rsync. Yep, rsync is a way to do it, like one file at a time. Or, I mean, you could do folders as well, but like one, rsync would work totally for this as well. Then you just can't navigate it like in the window explorer. I use rsync on a different Raspberry Pi for backing up a bunch of stuff. So that is not runnable. Chmod +x install. Let's make sure we got that last one in there. I think, yeah, okay, very good. Make sure that's runnable now. Yep, green means runnable. Install, we can just do that. Emoji font by WebView. And by installing it through apt like this instead of pip, it makes it get all the right dependencies, which I was finding difficult trying to install it through pip on the Raspberry Pi. I'm pretty sure on my computer I did install it through pip, though I'm not positive either. All right, additional packages, Qt, web engine, all kinds of stuff. Yep, 155 megs, sure. web channel, web engine, or web channel, web engine widget, engine data, web 5. Search real fast. Linux, launch Python, launch graphical Python script, yeah, SSH to display. Windows. So that's one thing. We could like try to tunnel the actual GUI. That's not necessarily what I want though. I don't want to see it on my remote computer, right? I don't want to see it on my desktop. I mean, we have the camera hooked up so I can see it, so I ultimately do, but I don't want to send the Windows session through the network. Ultimately, I want to send a start program into a different Windows session, I guess. Run GUI applications on your local desktop when connected. Yeah, no, but that's going to be on, that's forwarding again, though. That's not what we want. Okay, yeah. There we go, though. That seems output on the current monitor. So that's going to do the forwarding. I think this might actually be what we want. It's saying display no hub. Is no hub important, or is that part of the question? No hub. I don't know what that does. What's that? Hub. Or hang up. Exiting the shell of Linux. All running processes usually terminated at a hang up. So what if you want to keep it running? No hub. Okay. How do you kill it? Or if I see how that's relevant. Maybe we'll try it without. Okay, that finished successfully, seemingly. There's no giant stack of errors that I can tell. There's this, which looks kind of error-ish, but syntax warning. Oh, yeah. It's saying this one, right? Because this is the, I don't know why we're comparing to the string. I mean, this is like inside of, I don't even know, platforms web view. I don't even, is that Pi web view, or is that a different, I don't even know if that's Pi web view or a different thing. Anyway, somewhere in there, it has the Python code result is null. It should be equals probably. I think it matters way though than this warning. Okay, but it did install some stuff, so that seems good. Well, yeah, let's try this. This will work, but let's try it. So we're already SSH'd. I don't think we need to like SSH again. But I think what we're going to do is just display 0, well, :0, and then I guess space, and then the command that we want, which will be Python CodePy, because I named it CodePy. So I do think we still have this set. Let's run it once without and see what it prints. Since I added that print there, let's just run it like that. Display was set, in fact, actually. Okay. So yeah, I was talking about this earlier. PyWebView sometimes prints out some stuff that looks like it's bad. Oh, look at that. Nice. Thank you, by the way, for that tidbit about display. That totally worked. That is awesome. I did just try to like instinctually drag this, which is part of the risk of launching things from one computer onto another. Okay, that is super cool. I need to like write down. I mean, it was really easy actually. Just display equals :0, right? And then we can just, and it did pass through. I didn't do it again. All I ran here was just Python CodePy, right? Of course, now we have much stuff printed. Yeah, totally. Yeah, and this is working. Oh, we cut off the L there. We might need to do something about the names. So I was using display names earlier, but I found some people don't have display names. And so then I used, I don't know, handle or whatever they call this thing. But because it has bsky.social on a lot of them, yeah, some of them are a bit too long. You try to wrap it honestly, I thought it would have wrapped automatically. I guess it's because it's all one chunk. Maybe we just make it smaller. Yeah, not sure what to do about that. We cut it off? Truncate it? I don't know. This in Selenium setting display is enough. Nice. Yeah, that's super cool. And the refactor seems to have worked because this launched up no problem, and the images worked, so moving those was fine for Raspberry Pi. So now we actually have code that I can run in both places. Break word? It's the kind of thing I'm always happy to go on a bit of an adventure for, though. Break word? Word break. It does. Whether line breaks appear wherever the text would otherwise overflow. Yeah. Man, wouldn't it be a little bit helpful, kind of, sort of, if they would say what the default behavior is right here? Like, I really love MDN. This is one of the greatest resources for web developers, if not the greatest resource for web developers that has ever existed. But I will say, like, if they just put what it was going to actually do here, that would be pretty nice. I don't care about it if it's not supported in browsers. Okay, yeah. Normal lets stuff run outside. So we want break all. Or break word. Which in our case probably will do the same thing. Word break should be inserted between any two characters, excluding Chinese, Japanese, Korean characters. I think they can have two. I think some of them use two characters for one symbol or something. It's overflow wrap anywhere combined with word break normal. So there's also overflow wrap. So this overrides the overflow. Is that better? Different. Okay, break word would be what we want, I think. I mean, for this one, right? It seems like we could use either, and they do roughly the same thing, but... I will say one thing that's a little weird about this is, like... The possible values are, like, different concepts. Like anywhere is a place. Break word, you could say is a place like word is a place, but it also has a verb. So why is this not break anywhere? Anyway, not get too up on the names of CSS concepts. I think it said break word was deprecated. Ooh. How does this happen sometimes? You do Control F find and it says it found something, but like where? It says one of one match, but it's like not here. It's like hidden and it found it, but it won't, but it can't highlight it. Or this one has more. Still. Oh yeah, yeah. So break word on word break deprecated, which honestly makes sense to me. Like I can understand phasing out the usage of break word for the thing called word break, because like we're setting word break to break word. What are we doing? I don't know. So if we wanted to use word break, then we would want break all. If we use overflow wrap, we I think are okay with break word. It's the same value, but not deprecated for this one, seemingly. Yeah. I saved it here. If we wanted to get that to the device, then we'll need to copy it like this again. And then if we wanted it to rerun, we would need to kill this and rerun it. Can I kill this with Control C? Yes. Nice. That is super useful. Leave how useful that is, actually. Oh, it did unfortunately seem to kill it like while it was downloading. Is our downloading working wrong? Or checking for existing, or did I just like coincidentally kill it while it was downloading? I just coincidentally killed it while it was downloading. I only did a few. Just got some new posts, I think. Okay, let me kill it again and run it and see if it downloads, because it should not download again. Because the idea is like it downloads the files, it stores them under their CID, and then it will check and make sure that they don't exist yet before it downloads them. So that should stop it. It does take a while, the Control C. But the Raspberry Pi, honestly, with this thing running, it does, like, honestly, a lot of things are slow on the Pi. This is actually relatively smooth. The scrolling and the rendering, I've been pleasantly surprised with it. But I have noticed, like, especially when I was trying to use the console and some other stuff, it was bogging down a bit, for sure. Control C doesn't seem to want to go through this time. Is it odd that it worked once? Matter? Got the old clickarooski right there, no problem. Okay, does it? It should not download again, I don't think. Yeah, okay. See, this time we didn't get any downloading. We just, it did print out the data because there's still like a print JSON dump or whatever. Thanks for clearing that up. Yeah, for sure. I believe the default is browser dependent. Oh, fair enough. Yeah, that does make some sense. Forgot about browsers being different sometimes. Oh yeah, some of them might set it something different by default. I don't remember which one was too long, and I haven't been watching, so I don't know if it scrolled by already. Ew. We could. Oh, there it is. Nice. Sweet. Yeah, I mean that's not the best, but it's better than just running off the edge, right? I mean, take what we can get. This is pretty cool, actually. I've found myself just kind of chilling and watching these things scroll by. Times. Cool stuff in the retro gaming. haven't necessarily gotten too much into retro computing. My life revolves around computing generally a lot, but the first computer I had was like, I don't actually remember for sure what the first one was. It was like DOS. And it could play Doom, and it had a paint program, and those are basically all the things I remember about it. The first program the first computer that I actually used a lot, like that one I played Doom on, but that's pretty much it. The first computer I actually used a lot was Windows 95, I'm pretty sure. 95 or 98, and so it was like more modern as far as computers go. You can scroll faster too, so like I'm using the mouse that's plugged in, I can like scroll. And because of the way the logic works, this will also infinitely scroll still. So like I can kind of speed up, I can go back, right? You just go backwards. It will keep scrolling down on me, so it's kind of fighting me if I go backwards, like going, up the down escalator, so to speak. But we could put in logic that says like if they scroll with the scroll wheel or the mouse or whatever, then stop the auto scroll for a couple seconds or something. We could do that. But I do want it to also auto scroll because I want it to work with no input. I want it to be a thing that you can just sit there, on your desk or whatever, and it scrolls by, and like every now and then you peek at it and catch a post or two, and then just kind of absorb it through osmosis, so to speak. Or you could hang it on a wall if you wanted. You can do anything like that. Make a little picture frame for it. I probably don't have the skills to make a nice picture frame for it. I'm sure there's cases out there already. Okay, that was actually really easy as far as knowing what we need to install because it was actually just these three. We don't have to mess with pip. We don't have to mess with virtual environments. That is actually super cool. I like that. That is awesome. We can just get rid of this. Whoops. Well, I'll keep this because I think I did it that way on my computer here. I'll keep it. I know the Raspberry Pi doesn't do it, so that's fine. I think I'm going to start the guide for this. Got about 30 minutes left today. The code is actually working pretty well. Let me test the search. I haven't tested the search in a minute. The search isn't broken. So this will clobber the raw data and the process data. Theoretically, we could like save those like under a hash or something that tells it what it was for. Because my idea with storing these is I may add some extra logic into fetch data that says like, hey, I know that fetch data was called, but check the date on this file. And if the date on this file says that it was fetched like 30 seconds ago or whatever, don't bother fetching again. I do think the Bluesky rate limit's fairly forgiving, but I also don't want to just send traffic all willy-nilly if we can avoid it. And so that's the idea with those cached files there. It's not implemented yet, but that's the idea with them. And so what we could do ultimately is like associate each file with what request it was for. So we could then say like, hey, are they fetching the retro computing feed? And if they are, and if we just downloaded it, 45 seconds ago, then just give them the cached one instead of hitting the API. Especially for feeds like that, like the retro computing, it's like one post every, couple hours or so, right? It's not necessarily super fast moving. So if you're fetching it every minute or something, you're not going to be getting new data anyway. Yeah, AT protocol. That's where the AT. The rate limit. Rate limits. So one of the things that's weird, I guess, about Bluesky is third parties can run the servers too. So I'm hitting, what am I hitting? I'm hitting bsky.app, public.api.bsky.app. But I guess like third parties can run this as well. So and then if you're hitting a third party server, obviously, they might apply their own rate limits, right? So you'd have to check with them. In my case, I'm hitting the Bluesky API directly, so then they're are controlling the rate limits, and they are saying what here? API hosts and auth. Yeah, see, that's the AT-proto thing is like, that's the protocol I was talking about. They kind of invented this whole protocol and then built this site on top of it, and other sites can also use the protocol. Headers. Ooh, there's something in the headers. Let's print the headers. Let me stop printing the data. That's just a lot. Response headers. All right, so I saved that. I want to copy it. Then I want to rerun it. Let me try the Control-C again. Weird that the Control-C worked once. I guess maybe it worked because we Control-C'd while it was downloading. Like, effectively, we Control-C'd while the Python code had control. And then, like, right now, really kind of the JavaScript code has control, right? Because we have our interval that's scrolling, and then we'll only call fetch data once every 7 minutes. And then until that happens, the Python code's, like, just chilling back there, not really doing anything. I bet that's it. I think I just, like, coincidentally hit Control-C when it was downloading, and that made it work since the Python code had control. I think there's we can hook up an exit key listener too, though. I know. Okay, so I switched it to search, right? I switched it to search Adafruit, and so now we have to download a lot of stuff because, you know, we had downloaded only the retro computing feed before. Response headers. It's technically not JSON because there's single quotes. I think it might be able to format, though, hopefully. Yeah. They got a bunny CDN. That's pretty sweet. Well, I don't see anything about rate limits in here. What that's for. That's the thing. They got a lot of these like DID colon PLC colon blah, 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 bunch of data. It's somehow stuffed in there. I don't know. I'm not seeing any rate limits. See anything even about rates or limits? Rate does not appear. Limit does not appear. Huh. Nice. That's the thing you want to find in your documentation, huh? Okay. No idea what this stuff's talking. We're in a totally different place now. So this is supposed to be the rate limiting spec. The headers, but really return that stuff. Clicked from this? I clicked this. Many. Okay, it does say many. I mean, we could listen for a 429. But we're not doing a write operation. we're not updating, right? We're not making a post. We're not, liking a post. We're not putting anything in the database. We're only getting stuff out of the database. I don't think that's for us. Most authenticated. So I've found this where they talk about authenticated API requests, but the thing is, like, some of these. I'm pretty sure at least one of these docs referred to a thing as an authenticated request, but I was able to make it with no auth. So it's like, I don't think that their docs are in line with their actual enforcement right now. EDS hosted account. So you can somehow, so like I am Foamy Guy, but I'm not just Foamy Guy, right? Like all the rest of these ones, I am foamyguy.bsky.social. But if you have your own domain, which I guess I do have my own domains, if you choose to set it up, you can somehow set it up where you can use your own domain as the last part of your handle or whatever they call it. In which case, I guess they're saying something about that. So yeah, we're not doing any of these. Not doing any of these. So this one seems like the only one that would apply as far as I can tell my understanding of what's here, which it says 3,000 per 5 minutes, which we are never going to get anywhere near. Even if you count downloading the images as an API request, which I'm not sure that they do, we're still never going to get anywhere near 3,000 in 5 minutes. Because currently we're fetching up to 30 posts, and we're doing it once every 7 minutes. So if we got all 30 posts and all 30 posts had images, we would send 31 requests every 7 minutes. We're not uploading. I don't know what app view is. I don't think we're using it. Not sure. I would agree with this, though. The rate limits are pretty generous for today's internet, for sure. I don't know what that one means. Okay, the only thing I can tell is 3,000 per 5 minutes, which we're not going to come anywhere near. So I think I'm inclined to not necessarily add any code to handle it. And I may not even bother with the caching, honestly. Like, I'll keep the files. They're nice for troubleshooting as well, but I don't think we need any logic in fetch data that's like, if the file is newer than whatever, then just use it. I mean, we could, but it's like, I don't think it's going to matter. And if we do that, then we are going to have to come up with some mechanism for making sure they have not requested different data, right? Like when I changed this from retro computing feed to search for Adafruit, we're requesting different data, so we would want to definitely break the cache in that case, which means we would need to like either pass like a force true, or we would need to like save these somehow associated with each thing that they were, and then look up the current one. I think any of it's really worth it if we're not going to be going anywhere near the rate limit. Am I logged into Learn here? Probably not. I am. Okay, nice. All right. Guide. Do they do capital B, capital S, or? lowercase s. Let's see. Explain your project in one sentence. Say on a TFT display with your Raspberry Pi. Ultimately, I'm gonna be going on a TFT idea. One paragraph. Say a given hashtag or search term. Searching for a given hashtag or search term. Let's just say term. And hashtag or term. Bluesky API to fetch posts from a specific feed or by searching for a given hashtag or term. Then display posts infinitely scrolling list made with HTML, JS, CSS. That's the bulk of what I want to say about it. I don't have a good image. We're going to wait until I have the screen to do the image. So we're going to mess with that. So this stuff the same. Primary products. We can start getting the products. Fetch data. Did I just search for? Okay, that. So I'm on a Pi. I'm on this. In fact, I'm on a Pi 3B. Probably, I would assume that this could work on a Pi 5 or a Pi 4. I do have a Pi 4, so I could test it there. I do not have a Pi 5, so I cannot test it there. So I think what I will do is not claim the Pi 5 for now. Oh, there's a Model B of the 4 now. Interesting. I knew there was different RAMs as well. I would probably not go below the 4 gigabyte personally, but oh, there's a B plus. Only 1 gig of RAM. A B plus? I don't. Okay, so I mean, there's a lot of different ones. Because the 4 started coming with different amounts of RAMs. I guess there's a 3 with different RAM too. Didn't realize. I don't think we want to recommend the 1 gigabyte one. It may work, but I don't know. I haven't tested it. I don't know. My assumption would be that better to err on the side of caution. 2 gigabytes? Probably fine. Might be a bit slower. Got to constantly clear out something or whatever. I don't know. That might be fine. Okay. Let's start with these. So that's 30, 55. Oh, we're going to do that on this page. Yeah, okay. So that was for not. We'll do that on the next page. Categories. It is, let's see, Raspberry Pi, probably category, I'm assuming. Develop, kind. So it is LCDs and displays, TFTs. We're gonna have a TFT on there. Raspberry Pi. Probably it, unless there's like there's social media or something. I don't there is, but that's probably gonna be the other one that would make sense. No, I don't see anything like that. Okay, so we'll go with those. Save this. Products, so that's where we do this here. So we had 3055. 3055. One question, I guess, is do I want to go, so the order of these will determine the order they appear in the little sidebar. Do I want to go pi, 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 and then TFT display, or do I want to go pi, TFT display, and then other pies? Oh, I ended up with the 1 gig one. There's a B with 1 gig, and there's a B plus with 1 gig. Did the 3 just have 1 gig? Is that... Can you see you can see how much RAM from HTOP, right? Yeah, maybe Raspberry Pi 3 just had 1 gigabyte of RAM. In which case, the 1 gigabyte 4, I guess, maybe is fine. I don't know. Wait a minute. Did I end up with different windows here? I did. I think I just dragged the learn into the different windows. Probably what happened. So did they offer options or just were all the 3s, all the 3 Bs really is what I care about. I think there were some 3s before the B, but they're not around as easily. All the 3 Bs though, are those all 1 gigabyte? Yeah, it looks at least 3B. I did see a 3B plus there. I believe mine are not the pluses. Because they're from many years ago. One gig. Yeah, totally. All right. So do we want to put the 3B plus also? I mean, realistically, the 3B plus is a better, quote unquote, better device for the same money, is it? $35? This thing said the 3B plus, the final revision, 4 gig. So this listed at the same 1.4 gigahertz. Oh, but this is different actually, 1.2 gigahertz. Okay. ECM 2837, ECM 2837B0. 0.2 extra gigahertz out of it. I don't know that it matters too much. I guess we put them both. And then what I'll do is I'll put them both, and then I'll put the display, and then I'll put the Pi 4s. The idea being, like, if you're buying a Pi to do this project, which I don't really anticipate most people who see this project and want to do it, I would imagine it's more likely that they just have the Pi already they're going to do it with. Could possibly work on a Pi 2 as well. I don't know. Okay, those, and then the TFT, which is I did the 2.8. I found easier by getting rid of out of stock. This one. So 320 by 240, that's what my window is sized for. So once I get this display and get it hooked up, we should be able to just spawn our browser at 00. There's a thing in there to make it windowless to get rid of the title, and then it should just fit perfectly on the display, I think. We'll see if that turns out to reality or not, but I think that is how it hopefully will go. This is 2423. All right, and then I'll put the 2 Pi 4s after that. I think there was more than 2, but I don't know if they stock all of them. You stock all of them, actually. Okay. Should we put all 3? I mean, the 1 gig probably will work. I definitely do not have a 1 gig Pi 4 to test with. There's actually 4 of them. I believe I have a Raspberry Pi 4, a single one. I'm pretty sure it's an 8 gigabyte. I'm pretty sure I bought the biggest one, because I had in mind to do something with it that's graphically intensive, like potentially driving 2 videos at the same time, or like 1 video and 1 other thing at the same time, broadly speaking. Interesting, the Pi 4 is actually also $35. Should we just put all of these? I mean, it's an awful lot to put them. This one's out of stock. I guess it doesn't matter right now. It may come back. $4295. $4292. $4296. Oh, 4564. Completely different. Fair enough. Probably didn't get them until later. The bigger ones were harder to get right there at the beginning when the Pi 4 launched. Okay. We're good with those. Is there a save somewhere? It's automatic. See any? I don't even really see a way to get back to the guide that we're writing. Hit back button, but it feels kind of wrong. I mean, we're definitely on a specific guide. I feel like we're missing a breadcrumb. All right, all guides. Start with overview. Gonna have a not work. Yeah, this has been happening to me. I think I just need to refresh, and then this will work the next time. Or this, I'm not gonna be able to do anything until this shows green. Pretty sure. Not having a whole lot of luck getting that green either. This is also why I have no edit thing here. And I need more copies of this open. I do think only one open, but so I was having a thing where I would act like this was doing this same thing, but I would just refresh once and then it would be fine after that. Looking like that's working right. Means not really do anything else to the guide until that is fixed. Okay, the JavaScript crashed. It probably stopped trying. Fortunately, it's difficult to tell literally anything about what's happening. Anonymous stuff. Is there any chance this is wrecking it? Maybe you turn this off for now. Try again. Think so. Or the ad already turned off the ad blockers. A lot of different stuff printed after the error. We not get an error or it's connected? So it never did actually. I guess so. I did a control F5, which means it had to grab a bunch of stuff, including fonts. That's all. That stuff is all just fonts. Okay, so we're definitely just getting this error. It's ultimately it's trying to fetch something from the page, but it's null. Reorganize pages, null. Then it no longer runs any more of the code because the JavaScript crashed. So there would be like a reorganize somewhere in here. It's not there for whatever reason. And then that stops the JavaScript. Huh. If anyone who's watching has learn guides or Playground, is Playground? If anyone who's watching has learn guides or playgrounds, I'm curious if that's happening to anyone else or if it's just me. How do I get to it? There we go. Okay, playgrounds actually did connect fine. But but the difference is playgrounds don't have pages, right? Playgrounds are a single page. So they're not going to have any reorganized pages, so it's not going to be a problem on playgrounds. Yeah. Okay. So if anyone has guide, I'm curious if that's happening to you. I mean, it must have worked the first time, though, because we managed to get the overview page created. So why did it work the first time? All right. Well, I think I'm fairly stuck on being able to do anything more in the guide because of that for now. I was going to document a bit more about, well, really what we probably would end up doing is scaffolding it a bit more, creating the next couple of pages high level and then working into some more of the details, but we're about at time anyway. Didn't see the problem, sorry, but if it says connecting, then refresh. Yeah, I have had that before, and I have tried refreshing, but it still is not coming up. It is, I mean, it seems to me like there's a chance the JavaScript on the page is broken either temporarily or like broken because of something else. So what I'm seeing is whenever the page loads, something inside of there is doing a get element by ID and then calling a function immediately, which means if this returns, you know, null or undefined or whatever it returns when there's not a thing on the page, then this code raises an exception. Well, that's Python lingo, but that's what we got, right? It called getElement by ID. It got null. It tried to call something on null. You can't call anything on null. And then the JavaScript stops, which seems like it's also stopping the whatever tries to connect, seemingly. It says it's looking for reorganized pages, which I do think usually is in this thing here, but is not right now, and thus, like, maybe it got adjusted in one place to remove that somehow, because maybe those are drag and drop or something. I don't know, but it's like somehow, for me at least, that's not going through. Oh, this actually does have, it does have this on, but I was just in a tab that didn't, so I don't think that that's interfering. Yeah. The difference. Okay, I'll put out some feelers and see if that's an issue on Learn or just an issue on my end somehow, but maybe only multi-page guides get reorganized. But then you're always broken after you've created the first page. Oh, I can create now. Create a new one. I shouldn't just call it second page though. What should I call it? So this could be could this be like we're gonna have a setup page. What do I call it in the other guides? Admin. That one's kind of a different one. We want a project guide more so. Project setup. Do I want to do 2 project setups? Like one for... No, I think we'll probably end up with just one. So this is 2 different devices, which is why it has 2. I think we just go one project setup. And this page will say how to get the code, how to run the install script, how to launch it. Eventually, I'll probably try to put an auto launcher in there as well, so that if you want to, you can enable it to just launch automatically. You're totally right. Yeah, reorganize exists now. And we got connected. So I think that's, but I'm pretty, like, that seems like broken logic for me. To me, I should say. Because it will always be broken when you have a single page. And I thought, like, before it was not doing anything when I clicked on this. So it made me think, like, because I was not connected, I could not make pages. Now, one thing I will say is I did not try clicking on this every time I refreshed. So at some point I clicked this and it did nothing, but now it works. And now we're actually connected as well. And we have reorganize and all the stuff. And I think you're probably right that that appeared after the second page, but I think the JavaScript tries to refer to it in even when there's only one. But at least I can get past it by creating the second one. I just got to remember to actually click the thing, I guess. I don't know what it would have been doing when it wasn't working, but okay. I think I'm going to wrap it up for there and go and find some lunch for myself. Maybe I will launch it again real fast and let it run while we wrap up here. Oh, yep, I just tried to do it again with the whole dragging with the other one. Yeah, I'll file a report for it. Okay, there we go. All right, so thank you everybody for watching. I hope you have a good rest of your Saturday, good rest of your weekend and all that stuff. I believe, yeah, I'll be back on Friday. So Friday we are doing deep dive. It is quote unquote Black Friday here in the US, which is like not really a holiday, but like a shopping day thing that some stores want to turn into a holiday. Thanksgiving for us is on Thursday, so I'll be hanging out with the family. But on Friday, I will be here for deep dive. That is it's usually billed at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. I am in the Central Time Zone, so I think of it as 4 p.m. Central on Friday. So I'll be back for that. I do think Scott might be back at some point in the next couple of weeks, and so I don't know if I have no idea if he's going to want to take over Deep Dive. He may not, but he may be back around for like the Monday meetings and stuff like that. If he wants to do Deep Dive, then he totally can, and we'll do it for a little bit. But I do think he's also going to be leaving again after that, so he'll be back for a few weeks, and then he'll be gone again for another chunk. So if he does come and do deep dives, then I'll still be back eventually after that. And I don't know exactly which week he's coming back, so I don't know for sure. I do think next week it's still going to be me on Black Friday, and then I don't know after that. So we'll have to see, play it by ear. Thanksgiving was a month ago for us. Nice. I'm looking forward to some, to way too much yummy food, certainly. That's kind of cool. Inset. I just tried to scroll it too. I feel like it's different than trying to drag it, but it still counts pretty much for trying to control one computer with the mouse from another. So, all right, take it easy, everybody. Hope you all have a good rest of your day. Thank you for watching. I will catch you next time. See ya.